Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited today to talk about matchmaking. This is a continuation this week, all this week on May 1st through the 5th. We're talking about matchmaking. And so we already talked about how to prepare for matchmaking. We talked yesterday about networking. Today we're talking about, what to do when you sit down at the table for those 10 to 15 minutes. And so I'm excited to talk about that. Before I do, though, I did want to just give a tip as a way to say thank you to those showing up early and on time. And my tip for you today is one I've talked about before. Make sure you're registered in supplier portals. There's over 100 supplier portals out there that we've identified that you could be in that are agency portals or large prime contractors, for example. They have their own supplier portals. Just get in there and register. If you haven't done this, go to our website, www.govconchamber.com. And on there, you'll find right on the homepage a free ebook that you can download that has over 100 supplier portals. And so get in there because I talk about you want to be where buyers are looking. They're not looking on your website. They look at your website once they find your website, right? Once they see your email address and they look at the domain, or they somehow find your website in DSBS or whatever. But you need to be there where they're doing keyword searches, trying to find small businesses like yours. And so that's my tip for you for today is if you're not really in supplier portals, then you're missing out on a huge portion of buyers who you can't knock on their doors, but they might want to knock on yours. And if you just do one supplier portal a day, in 100 days, you'll be in 100 different supplier portals, right? Imagine if just one turns into real revenue for you. Was it worth the 15 minutes, 10 minutes a day? Sometimes literally like 2 minutes a day. So that's my tip for you. I'm going to turn my captions off before I get started here on the training. I want to say good morning and good afternoon, and thanks for engaging for everybody in the chat. And I saw somebody who did this, and I just want to give a shout out to Ross today because Ross did exactly what I think you should do. He bailed on another meeting to come to this meeting. And Ross, I appreciate that loyalty to the community that we've developed here. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started on today's training. Federal agencies, they host a lot of matchmaking events, and they host these events as a way generally for small businesses to meet the agency and to get to know an agency, maybe get introduced into the agency. And these are great events that happen. I think tomorrow DHS is having an event that I just heard about yesterday. I mean, I probably heard about it a long time ago, but I was reminded again yesterday. But in matchmaking events, sometimes, we know we want to go to these events, but many of us struggle with going to the table, introducing our company. How do we introduce our company? How do we ask questions? What questions should we ask? And we're just trying to get traction, right, within the agency. But some of us struggle with how to do that when we're sitting down at the table. And that's what I want to drive at today. With some preparation and following a process, even a process in that 15-minute matchmaking session, you can have positive results at that matchmaking event. And that's what I want for you. In today's training, I'm going to talk about three main things related to the matchmaking event. First is how you can prepare for the matchmaking event, how you can take control of the meeting, the time, that 15 minutes, right when you sit down. How can you take control of it so you're driving it in the direction you want? And the third thing is I want to talk to you about shifting authority in your favor. And I'll describe what that means when I say shifting authority. But you want to shift authority in your favor so it encourages dialogue with the person on the other side of the table during a matchmaking event. So if you want matchmaking success, do me a favor. In the chat, put matchmaking success. Let me know that's what you want. And then also, I just want to let you know that when you put matchmaking success in the chat, you're helping LinkedIn let others know that, hey, we're government contractors here, having a session, having a meeting. Come join our community. LinkedIn will push this out further. Yesterday, we had Darlene Bullock was in. She's the OSDA booth for DHS. She just popped in, probably because LinkedIn just let her know. She and I are engaged on LinkedIn often. But many other buyers are in there, but not just buyers, large primes, and small teaming partners. You want to let them know that you're here, and you're here looking for potential teammates, good relationships in the GovCon world. So be active in the chat and put that down, matchmaking success, if you want matchmaking success and if you want to build your community. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When you follow a process A to Z, you're going to have predictable, repeatable results. That's what I want for you. When you sit down at a table, I want you to have repeatable, predictable results from that matchmaking session. And you get that by following a process. Before we get started, do me a favor, let buyers know who you are. Help me remember who you are and help the buyers remember who you are. Put your company name into the chat, like I mentioned in that scroll message that was there early on. Put your company message or company name into the chat. Put your core competency, 2 or 3 keywords that describe what you sell, into the chat. Help us remember who you are. And then if you're open to connections on LinkedIn, definitely let us know. If you're out off of LinkedIn, come in, connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with others. Most of us are open to connections. I would say 99% of the people who are in our community and in our training are open to connections. And the other 1% I kind of discourage. Finally, I want to say thank you to our sustaining members, the GovCon Chamber of Commerce sustaining members. We're not funded by the government. We're not funded by large contractors. We're self-funded. People like you and people like me are the ones who fund the GovCon Chamber of Commerce and make trainings like this possible to small businesses across the country. So on their behalf, I just want to say thank you. Okay, let's dive into federal matchmaking success in 10 to 15 minutes. And what I really mean is when you sit down at the table, how do you move forward? So the first step on having success at a matchmaking event when you're sitting down at the table is you want to gain control of a meeting when you sit down, right? Right when you sit down, the meeting can go in one of 2 ways, basically. It can be run directly the way that the other person wants, the person who is meeting with hundreds and hundreds of businesses, or it can go the way you want. And if you take control of the meeting, you can drive it in the direction you want. And I'm going to talk about control in a minute, so don't read too much into that. But the reason is we don't want to sit down at a table and just have some government agency person spouting a bunch of information. Like I've been to hundreds of matchmaking events in my career, right? And I've sat down with people who just should not have been there. They just look at you, won't even listen, and they'll just start talking. Oh, you need to register here, go to Sam. It's like, what do you mean go to Sam? We're making millions and millions of dollars already in your agency and you're not taking the time to get to know us. You can't control situations like that. But for most people, they want to have a dialogue and they just have a standard framework. But it's better if you have your framework because it leads to your objectives. They're really there to just meet you and to find small businesses that can serve the mission of the agency. Why are you there, right? And when I talk about control, I just mean meeting control, taking responsibility for the direction of that meeting. So if you want the meeting to go towards a particular objective and a particular result that you're looking for, take responsibility for guiding that meeting down the path that you want it to go. Control is not a bad thing. Like, no, you listen to me. I'm going to talk this way. You do that, no one's going to want to talk to you. But control is just, we all would love somebody to kind of be in control. They come into the meeting and they say, hey, here's the agenda. This is what we're going to talk about. Anybody have any changes? No, that sounds good. Okay, let's go. And it just means somebody in the driver's seat. We're all going in the same direction, but somebody in that driver's seat. And I want that control, that driver to be you of your meetings. And when you do that, you're going to have more success. And so let's talk about, some examples of how you can do control, right? And it's a little odd for me to do it as I do training, but if I sat down, right, and I'm coming up to a table and you got your 15-minute window, I would walk up and say, hi, I'm Neil McDonnell, right? Shake hands, elbows, bump fists, whatever it is people do. But I would just say, hi, I'm Neil McDonnell. I'm leading them to say, hi, I'm John Smith or Jane Smith, right? And they're throwing it back my way, basically. There's this little lull for a second. That's when you take control. And the way I would recommend you take control, just one example, right? You come up with your own and practice it back at your office. But I might sit there and say, hi, I'm Neil McDonnell. Oh, hi, I'm John Smith. Go ahead and sit down. Great. I appreciate you being here today, right? First thing I'm saying to them is thank you for being here today. I appreciate you being here today. I've done a lot of preparation. I want to read this little thing I did. I've done a lot of preparation, right? Do you mind if I share a bit about the homework that I've done already and then briefly introduce my company? So right from the get-go, I'm asking permission, right? I'm taking control, but I'm doing it with permission. So this is what I mean by professionally and politely taking control. Do you mind if I tell you about some of the homework I've done before I've come to this matchmaking session and do a brief introduction of my company? No, sounds good. It's like, okay, so that's an opening line. You want to practice a line like that, something like that. So when you sit down, you're able to show the other person, wow, here comes a small business sitting across the table from me who's prepared. most people will appreciate the fact that you say that you're driving towards a particular agenda. They might even like it because they've had to be in control for 100 different matchmaking sessions. To have somebody on the other side take control and say, I would like to go this way. Does that work for you? They'll appreciate it. It's like, sure, I'll hop in the passenger seat. You drive. We're both going to go to the same destination, right? Finding out what's good for your company and my agency. So that's a line you want to practice. I'll say it one more time, right? I'm walking up, I'm saying, hi, I'm Neil McDonnell. They say, hi, I'm John Smith. I appreciate you being here today, and I've done a lot of preparation. Do you mind if I share a bit about the homework I've done and then briefly introduce my company? Sure, sounds good, right? One way or another, they're going to say something. So have a line like that. That's your opening line. As you go forward and you're going to start talking to them, the first thing you want to do is talk about your homework. So you must do homework. And I think I'll talk about this a couple of times in today's training, but share with them the preparation you've done, right? Have the bullets on a piece of paper where you can show a bulletized list of what you've done research on. So examples could be, I've registered in your supplier portal. I've watched your how to do business with DHS or FEMA's, video. You have a video there. I read your whole web page that had all this information about, so you want to work with Department of Education, right? Let them know on a bulleted list, and you want to hand them that list. Hand them a list that shows the homework, and make sure that list is in 14-point font. It needs to be big enough that is super easy for people to read, right? I got old guy eyes kind of thing. I want it to be easy for me to read, because when it's easy for me to read, I'm following along with you, right? And so if I look at these bullets, even as you who sit, the small business sitting over there, are talking to the person on the other side of the table, they're looking down going, wow, look at this homework John's done or Neil's done, right? And so you want to let them know the homework you've done. If you don't know what homework to do, go watch my training from Monday. And, if it's way past May, just find it on YouTube somewhere where I say how to prepare for a matchmaking event. I tell you exactly how to prepare and the things you can read. Well, those are the things I want you to put on this piece of paper. Make sure that you take the time to do that research ahead of time. You've actually read and done some of the tasks, etc. Let them know. Let them know you went into FPDS and looked at expiring contracts. I went into this place and looked at a lot of different activities, etc. So, okay. So as you go forward, the other thing you're doing as you're sharing this bulleted list about the research you've done is, and by the way, somebody in the chat, just let me know if my comms are good, audio and video, because, and Jim, I love your seller be sold. That's exactly it. But let me know, because my tech is a little off and I can't really tell. But what you're doing when you take control is you're starting to shift authority to you. And this is the first time I want to mention shift authority today. The idea of shifting authority is when you walk in, typically we small businesses walk into a matchmaking session and the government person on the other side, the large prime who might be on the other side, they're in a little higher level of authority than us. We feel maybe a little, I don't know if inferior is the right word, but it's like we want to be working with you. And so we're a little deferential maybe or something, but you don't want that. That's not good for anybody. And so you want to begin to shift authority where you begin to bring yourself up. And if you've done all this preparation, you're kind of already going in and shifting that authority to an equal level. Hey, we're on equal levels coming up. Thanks, Gus. Thanks, everybody. So you want that level to be even. But when you start talking about all the research you've done and describing to them, I read the strategic document, I'm excited about this or that, you're now shifting the authority in your favor because they're looking at you going, wow, you've done more preparation for today's meeting than I did, right? And so this is shifting authority as you're taking control right in the beginning. And so the last couple of tips I just want to mention as it relates to gaining control is make sure you have just a 2-minute introduction of your company, not a long introduction. Even if you had a lot more time, 2-minute introduction of your company. No one really cares about anything more at the moment. First, second, you want dialogue. You don't want to present. You want to have a discussion. You have a set of goals, et cetera. So you have a capability statement. It should be a 6-second capability statement if you follow my training. Well, if you have a capability statement, at this point is when you pull it out of a folder. You don't give it to them right away. The first thing you do is give them a piece of paper that says, hey, here's what I did to prepare. That way they don't tell you to do all that stuff. That's the reason you're doing that. I don't need you to tell me how to research your agency because I just researched your agency. Can we talk about new stuff, right? And the capability statement, now you can pull it out of a folder and hand it to them. And that capability statement should be a 6-second read. In 6 seconds, they can get everything about your company. Well, while they're looking at it, you can begin to do your 2-minute introduction. You do not talk about your tags. You don't say you're a small business. You don't say you're an 8A or a woman-owned company. You don't say any of that. Your capability will scream that at the header if you do it my way, right? It screams it. What you want to say is, hey, this is what we do and this is who we've done it for. Basically, that's your 2-minute introduction. All the other stuff doesn't really matter. And so at that point, though, you're introducing your company. And so just practice a 2-minute introduction. You should have this not memorized, but you should have an understanding of how you yourself are going to walk through and look at the bullets on your capability statement. An example is I know a cybersecurity company. They got 5 major bullets in their core competency related to cyber. And so they would just kind of have a remember to say, oh, governance is this, compliance is this, risk management is this. Just a little bit of thing that's guiding them through the core competency. So the last thing about this whole gaining control and showing them how prepared you are is you're trying to differentiate yourself, make yourself memorable to the person on the other side of the table. You're trying to differentiate yourself through all the preparation and homework you've done. So if you do that, you will make a mark with them. And all of this, everything I've been talking about, even though it took me about 15 minutes to tell you, all of it would happen in the first 3-4 minutes, right? It's not designed to take a long time. It's really fast. When you talk about the preparation you're doing, that's 30 seconds, maybe a minute, but really 30 seconds and a 2-minute introduction, right? You see how quickly you can go forward because you want to go to the next step that I'm talking about, which is if you want success in a matchmaking event, when you're sitting at a table in that 10 to 15 minutes, use a call plan. Use a call plan to guide you, but also use a call plan to shift the authority. Like I mentioned, shift it in your favor. And then also use a call plan to ensure the outcome you want. I have a whole separate training. I have many trainings over the last couple of years where I talk about using a call plan for meetings. When you go to a full out hour-long introduction meeting, well, you can use that exact same framework, that same call plan when you go into a matchmaking session. So go watch these previous trainings. There's many, many trainings in there that go far into detail on each section, but just at a high level, a call plan, especially for a matchmaking event, should have the following 3 major sections, right? Actually, it's 2, and a third one I just want to mention, but you want to set your objective. So the first thing is determining your objective. What do you want to get out of a matchmaking event? Why are you there? Why are you even going? If you go to DHS's event tomorrow, are you just going because they're hosting it and you're a small business and you're going? What do you want to get out of it, right? An example could be, I want a follow-up meeting. That would always be at the top of my list, is I want to sit down across the table with somebody who will meet with me later. So then I can have an hour meeting where I can follow up and get more information, blah, blah, blah. So the first thing is set an objective. And I have whole trainings on how to set objectives. The second thing, major portion, and by the way, I always put in icebreakers. But the fact that you've told them how much you prepared in a call plan, for those of you who know the call plan, the icebreaker is covered by telling them how much you prepared. So you've set the objective. You already knew what your icebreaker is, that chit chat in the first 30 to 60 seconds type thing. The other major portion on a call plan that you want to fill out, you have your objectives, now have questions. You want to write down at least 5 questions that are going to lead to your objectives, 5 to 10 questions, but really you're probably going to get 5 questions at most to be able to ask because they're going to respond back. You might have discussion back and forth. 15 minutes goes really fast, right? These should be situation questions. I describe spin questions and you can learn more about that, but S at the beginning of spin is for situation questions. At a matchmaking event, that's generally what you're looking for. You're not trying to dig into the problem because rarely are you going to meet anybody from the program office, things like that. And so you're trying to get factual questions answered that maybe you couldn't find online. So your questions, though, they need to lead to the objective. If you have an objective to learn who does SharePoint at your agency, hey, I know NavWar runs the entire SharePoint, but who runs it at each major buying command for the business process tools or something, things like that, right? You want to come up with questions that relate to your objective. And the biggest thing about using a call plan and going to these matchmaking events, make sure you know your objective. What do you want? Okay, so a couple of other things to just pay attention to. Expectations at a matchmaking event when you sit down should be realistic. don't think you're going to get a sale, right? But don't think you're going to get massive introductions to a program office. You have to get these people on the other side to know, like, and trust you, and you're only going to barely scratch the surface. And so a realistic expectation more would be to get access to a strategic plan, get a follow-up meeting. So set your expectations realistically, and you'll be able to achieve them and have questions that drive towards that. Keep in mind also that there's hundreds of people at these events, and these matchmakers get tired, right? They're there for a long time. I've been there before on the other side of the table, answering and talking to people. And, you try to keep going and have a smile on your face, but you get pretty fatigued. And it gets hard for me to remember this person to that person to this person, because all the core competencies blend together, all the past performances. And so there's a lot of people there. Don't have a unrealistic expectation that somebody's going to remember you. That relationship is just starting at the matchmaking table. You take it afterwards and you develop it, right? And the last thing to keep in mind about the table is that the other person on the other side, rarely are they buyers. And if they are, rarely are they your buyers, right? If we have a matchmaking event, it's for HubZone firms. Well, there's HubZone firms that do cyber, HubZone firms that do software development, do training, do landscaping, do construction. We do all these things. How can the person on the other side of the table at DHS, a FEMA table, how can they be the right person for all of us? Generally, they cannot, and they won't be. So what you want to do is to be able to come in there and learn a little bit more about their organization, those situational questions, and then get the agreement to meet with them later. And I talked about that in a different training. So last thing is, as it relates to use of the call plan, is make sure you show them the call plan. Don't give it to them, but show it to them. Say, hey, I got this call plan, or this, in this case, you would call it a matchmaking plan or agenda. I just wrote down 5 questions to make sure I reminded myself what I wanted to talk with you about. If it's okay, I'd like to use that as I go forward. They're going to say not only sure, but they're going to hopefully try to help you get through those questions. You'll get through 4 and you're like, well, I probably can't get asked the 5th one. No, hurry up. Ask me that last one. What was that last question you had? Right? They want to be helpful. And if they see you're prepared and you show them the roadmap you're following, then they're going to try to jump on that same path and go with you. Remember what I said about if you're in control and you're the driver, well, they're in the passenger seat because they both, you and them, want to go to the same destination. And that destination is somehow finding out how you can help their agency and how their agency might be able to welcome you in as a supplier, a trusted supplier. Okay, last thing I want to talk about is when you think about the 15 minutes, and I know this is a fire hose, by the way, the beauty of instant replays. I don't gate any of my training. I put it out there for you to be able to watch again, and you can watch it at half speed, but go back and watch it again, especially if you're going to a matchmaking event coming up. But the last thing I want to talk about is how you behave in a way that can encourage dialogue and encourage information sharing. So let's talk about that really quick. The first thing is, and I alluded to this, right? Come knowledgeable about their agency. You'd be amazed how many people come and they don't even know the mission of the agency. But if you come so knowledgeable that you're talking about a strategic plan, you're talking about you just read last year's annual report, you're talking about I just read a data strategy. I've been at events and watched people on my team talk about documents the buyer didn't even know existed. And they're like, oh, can I get a copy of that? When you talk about authority shifting, that does it when you have an agency document that they don't have. So come knowledgeable, make a point of actually trying to succeed. Be very organized with your paperwork. Don't let your paperwork be all, a fluster when you're trying to pull certain things out. If you're going to sit down, have a folder and you have these documents that you want to share. Here's the first one's the call plan. You put it in front of you. The second one is the bulleted list of the research you've already done. The third one is the capability statement. You have that in a row. And if you've got 4 matchmaking events, you make sure you put them in a folder and they're paper clips so you know how to go forward, and you can manage that pretty easy. But take the time to prepare even just the paper. And when you're pulling it out, you just look organized. Wow, these people just seem put together. Let me talk to them. Have DSBS filled out correctly. I say this all the time. I will never tire of saying this because if you do it, it will be good for you. Hunter Martin, she's in our chat. I don't know, Hunter, if you're in today, but she tells this story of when she went to the Navy after filling out DSBS properly and completely. When she went to matchmaking events at the Navy in Gold Coast, a big Navy event out in San Diego, she sat down and across the table, the government buyer, whoever's on the other side, pulled out her DSBS profile, printed, and talk to her about how great this was. It makes it so easy for me to understand what your company sells. I can see your past performances. And so do that yourself. Have it prepared as you go forward. It encourages information sharing if the other person is also doing their job preparing by looking you up, since they know who they're going to meet with. Rework your capability statement. That's another tip for you, is just make sure it's a 6-second capability statement. And a lot of training I have out there, but the reason I want you to have a 6-second capability statement in 14-point fonts, logos that talk about women-owned or 8A, for example, up in the top right. The way I describe it is designed so that when you give it to the other person and they've got a pencil and you're talking, introducing your company, they're circling things. They're like, oh, an 8A. Oh, you've got this contract vehicle. Oh, you guys have done this type of work, right? Tell me more about this. Tell me more about that. When you have a good capability statement that can be read and understood in 6 seconds, it encourages discussion. That's what you want. You don't want them reading a long time. You want them talking with you about the questions that you prepared and brought. Another tip in this for how to behave when you're in that meeting so that it encourages discussion is take notes, even if you don't need to take notes, right? You're showing respect by documenting what they're talking about. So you don't have to write every single word, but as they're talking, and maybe they say, well, there's this office that does this, you can just write it down. And don't forget to ask for clarification. If they say DHMS, go, wait, what was that acronym? Could you slow down? Could you say that really quick? Okay, got it. Thanks. I'll look at it after our meeting type thing. But take notes, because notes is very respectful. If I take the time to talk to you about my agency, then the least I want is for you to not try to just remember it all as you're walking around this big event. If you don't take notes, I'm thinking you don't really care. Not to be mean, I'm just saying take notes, right? Don't try to be a SME when you're there or have SME conversations. Be careful of getting caught up talking too technical about your business. Keep it at a 3rd grade level. Even your introduction to the company, keep it at a 3rd grade level or a wedding level. When you sit at matchmaking, how can that person really know a lot about the subject matter expertise that you do? They can't, or your company does, right? So keep it at a higher level. You can still talk about cybersecurity or elevator maintenance, et cetera, but at a higher level, and it makes the conversation go easier, and it keeps it in a way that doesn't waste time talking tech, but it keeps it focused on the questions you have around the objective you have set. And the last thing is, if you really want to talk about a particular opportunity you see in a forecast or on GovWin or whatever, make sure you print out some information. It could be a summary from GovWin, or it could be from a summary from SAM, or from a supplier, or a long-range acquisition forecast, whatever it is. Kind of print it out as a way to hand it to them and say, here's your copy. That way, if they're circling it, maybe they write your name on it. In fact, when you hand it to them, make sure you already have your point of contact and company at the top, because maybe they take that as an action item for themselves. So don't just bring the opportunity with no reference. Give them reference. It makes it so much quicker or easier for them to either help you right then and there, or say, hey, let's follow up and connect, and I'll try to get you more information about this opportunity. So a huge fire hose there. If you want to have success at a matchmaking event, sitting down at the table, right? When you sit down at the table, politely and professionally take control of that meeting. Use a call plan that'll guide you forward on the questions you want to ask towards the objective you're trying to hit, and then behave in a way that encourages discussions around that objective you have set for yourself and your company at a matchmaking event. You'll have success if you follow a process. If you find value in my trainings, become a sustaining member today. If you're, by the way, I'm doing this as a 5-part series. So if you're a sustaining member, I'm going to put this together in the library as a mini course with some handouts in there to help you successfully go into matchmaking events going forward. And then if your company is already making money, $1 million, $2 million, whatever, and you're looking to go to the next level, reach out to me about our BD Accelerator workshop. Love to help you. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, ping me in messaging, and we can talk about it. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. Neither is matchmaking. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.